taking breaks, right? But definitely feel free to come in and come out as you please, but just be mindful of the speaker as we're speaking, right? Yeah. There you go. And then they're gonna be dessert from water and beer. Sure. You know, what you get? Yeah, you are. We'll get it for you, okay? Thank you. And y'all can have as much as you want, right? You can come back for third, second, fourth, whatever you want. Okay. Sure.
Okay, so I have a quick question. How many of you are staying for the branding presentation? Okay, just to know how much time I have. So I know most of you are here for the resume workshop and I won't keep you long. So it is a workshop. We will spend a little bit of time actually working through some of the things on your resume. It's going to be an opportunity to ask questions that are specific to you because not one resume can fit everyone, right? I'm pretty sure if I would have asked all of the majors in the room, they would be different. And so that means your resume should also look different. So we're going to talk about the fundamentals of building a resume. And then also how you can apply your industry or field knowledge into your bullet points, into your summary, things like that. Before I get started, my name is Ariana O'Quinn. I am the Assistant Director of Career Services at UH Sugar Land in Katy, but I also spend a little bit of time here in main campus too. So if you're ever in the Fort Bend area and you say, hey, I want a career appointment, all you have to do is pop onto Cougar Pathway, click Sugar Land, and you'll see my name up here if you're in that area. If you are not someone that doesn't like appointments because your schedule's really crazy, we do have drop-ins. So our drop-ins are every Monday virtually from 1 to 3 p.m. And then we also have in-person drop-ins on Tuesdays. So if you find yourself wanting to have your actual resume reviewed, you can always stop by for a drop-in too. Okay. This week specifically, additional drop-ins on Thursday. Sorry. We'll be having additional drop-ins this Thursday in person as well, only for the Prepare for the Fair event week. Every week after that will be only Mondays virtual, Tuesdays in person. Okay. If at any time you have questions that's about the content on the screen, feel free to let me know. But if you want to wait to the end of each segment, you are more than welcome to do that too. Okay. All right. Again, here's that flyer that you probably have seen several times, which is why you're here now. This is the week of events. Right now, we are at Wednesday. If you did not have a chance to visit the JCPenney on Sunday, we do have coupons still available. So let us know if you would like a coupon to still shop with a discount. And then we'll be ending this week tomorrow with our drop-ins again. So let us know if you have questions. Feel free to stop by our office. So who can tell me what makes a strong resume in 2025? Shout them out. Okay, experience. Skills. Yes. Anyone else?
Presentation.
Say that again.
Presentation. How do you present?
Your presentation. So the aesthetic, how it looks. Yes, absolutely. Anyone else?
Uniqueness.
Uniqueness, right. So when you are submitting an application or a resume to a job, how much you stand out will matter, right? So if all of y'all's resumes say the exact same thing, how do you stand out to get chosen, right? So if, let's say, 3 of you are in the same major and you want to show them what you can do, your resume shouldn't look like hers, her resume shouldn't look like yours, right? So you want to make sure that you are standing out and you are showcasing the skill set that you have as an individual. So your resume should be 1 page. So here's the thing. A lot of times we accomplish things and we're really proud of it, and you should be really proud of it. However, you have to ask yourself, how relevant to this job is this piece of information? If you cannot find the relevancy, then you should consider removing it. If you're afraid of losing information because you're always taking things off your resume, just duplicate a copy and take from the new copy so that you can always hold on to your entire history of work and experiences, okay? So if you do not have more than 1 copy of your resume, let this be one thing you take away from here today. Go ahead and duplicate and make another copy. There is no such thing as one resume fits all, which means you should have multiple copies of your resume that showcase your different skill set, okay? Especially those who are planning to go to grad school, you should have a CV. You should have something that showcases your academic standing, okay? Also, make sure that your resume is action and accomplishment oriented, created, managed, analyzed. You'll see here, and also I know you guys are eating and that's okay, but if when you're on your way out, we have handouts too available in the middle of the room. I am holding a resume template. So we have a template that guides you through how to make your resume, but then we have a sample available too. What I want you to notice is the order in which it occurs, right? As a student, we want you to put your best foot forward. And so that's why you will see your education, relevant coursework, and projects as one of the first few sections. Because those are the things that are most recent, right? Those are the things you are working on, you have accomplished, and you want to always be forward leaning on your resume, showcasing your actual accomplishments and recent ones. Make sure you tailor it to the role. So ask yourself, are you listing relevant experiences and accomplishments that align to the job description, right? So you may be really proud of one accomplishment, and that's fine. But if it does not relate to the job, that means it does not give you points, right, for qualifications for that job or internship. So keep in mind that your resume is a business document. It's your business document. It's your marketing document, right? This is the document you are saying, hey, this is about me. Let me know what you think. And if it's not your best, then you may not go any further than this. The saying is your resume gets you the interview and how you interview gets you the job. So if you're not getting any interviews, whether it's an internship or a regular job, check your resume, okay? This is the only document they get to see before they decide to move forward with you. Remember some of the resume writing tips. So 2R, recent, relevant. If you don't hear anything else said, you're going to hear me say that a few times, right? Relevant, relevant, relevant. Always think relevancy. Make sure it's recent as well. For you all, you may not have to worry about that just yet, but if you're someone who has over 10 years of work history and experience, that's when that applies to you. Because then you start to go into some things that you probably had done a long time ago that may not be relevant anymore. So just keep that in mind. And then remember the 2 C's, clean and concise. So if I were to go back to that sample, or if you can see it in my hand, it's clean and it's concise and it's streamlined. So it's not like all this different fonts and beautification things happening, right? It's very clean to the point. You see only black ink. A lot of times we want to get a little creative. And the only time I would say you can use some creativity is if you're going to hand that resume in person and if it applies to your major. So that goes for art majors. That maybe goes for digital media, graphic design, different majors where they have to showcase their creativity to the team, right? But if that's not your major and that's not applicable to your industry and field, remember to leave those things off, okay? Concise is your format and information consistent throughout. So if you start off with, maybe just showcasing your collaboration abilities through your projects, make sure you showcase that across all of your experiences, because truth be told, we have to work with other individuals, right? Whether it's a project or work or whatever the case is. So just make sure you're not cutting off your experience at just one thing that you did on your resume. Make sure it's consistent all the way through. And if you need assistance with trying to brainstorm how you can communicate that on your resume, that's exactly what Career Services is here for. We can help you think about some of the experiences that you had that you may not know how to put into words. Also, on the back of this resume template that you all can pick up from the middle of the room, we have some verbs. These verbs are here to help you start your bullet points off strong. So whenever someone's reading your bullet points, they need to be able to understand the impact in which your work has. So how many, by show of hands, have a resume that you're proud of? Okay. So that means we're on our way there, and that's why you're here today, right? So from this point forward, I want you all to take some of the things that you're hearing, put in the work, and then come and see us too for one-on-one appointments so that we can actually make sure that your resume gets to that point. One key thing to do is to have a job in mind, whether you find it online, it's an internship, whatever the case is, that you want to strive for, right? Because imagine trying to update a resume with no goal. So if you don't have a goal, you're gonna be bothered by the fact that you have to keep changing your resume because you're updating it for no reason, right? So make sure you are aligning it to something that you are trying to achieve. Does that make sense? Perfect. So we're gonna go through each section. I'm gonna probably fly through them really fast, only because they're kind of straight to the point, but then you'll also see the same exact things on the actual template too. So we always want to start off with our contact information. Make sure it shows your first and last name for conciseness so that they can easily identify that that email address belongs to you. I do realize that sometimes people may have common names and so it may not be available. You can always use numbers at the end of that email address. So let's say there are a million people who have Shastakud as a name, and that person, they try to create a Gmail, you can just add 45 or 123 or whatever the case is, but just make sure your first and last name is in that email. Or you can do Shasta.Ku, whatever the case is, but make sure it is your first and last name. Of course, always include your phone number because otherwise how else would they contact you if they want to talk to you? Your city and state. How many of you have your full address on your resume? Yeah, a couple.
Like the street.
The street number and the, all right, we're gonna take that off, okay? Take it off. And it's several reasons for that, right? One, you don't want people having extra information about you that they do not need. Where you live does not qualify you for the job. A lot of times employers want to say, oh, we just want to know like what your commute is like. It's really up to you if you want to make that commute, not to them, right? So let's remember to not give them the information that they do not need and keep it to ourselves. Another thing too is they don't need to know where you live just in general, because then we start to talk about biases, right? Location bias. And so if you want to remove the possibility of discrimination as much as possible, it starts with you and it starts with you taking away information that they do not need. Otherwise, if they needed your address for any other employment purposes, guess where else it is for them to see? Where else? The application. It's on the application. So if we're already providing them the information, let's not put it on our resume and take up any additional space. Let's get straight to the point. Let them know our relative location, which is your city and state. I even say remove your zip code. I know some people still keep the zip code. The zip code is also a location bias, right? It literally gives you a certain area in the city of where you are. So you can remove that too as well. And then, of course, you want to give them additional information about you because let's say they are intrigued, they do want to kind of like learn a little bit more about you as a person. They can just visit your LinkedIn. So keep in mind, employers are human still, right? Recruiters are human. They want to know more. 9 times out of 10, just how nervous you may be about speaking to them, they're also a little apprehensive about reaching out if they're not sure. So you can always just link a portfolio or your LinkedIn to help them feel a little bit more comfortable with your skill set. Then you have your education, which is cut and dry. You have your university, your degree. We always say you put your GPA if it's over a 3.0, if it's 3.0 and up. If it's below a 3.0, you can leave it off. If you are applying for a position where there's an internship or job that requires a GPA of a certain amount, they may not necessarily care for it to be on the resume, but you're going to want to make sure it's there just to be sure that they see, right? Now, your GPA isn't a requirement for most employment opportunities. They may be a requirement for some internships, but for most entry-level jobs, they're not checking for your GPA. I say leave it off because, again, why give them more information than they need? That's not relevant. Remember that. If it's not relevant, they don't need it. They're not going to look at your application and the next person's application that have the same qualifications and say, well, they put their GPA and they didn't, but your GPA could very well be higher than theirs, even though you didn't put it. You see what I mean? So it doesn't, if as long as they don't tell you that's a requirement, then it's not needed for the application. And then after that, you can see that the date is aligned to the right. The anticipation is implied. I see a lot of times people put their start date in school and their end date. I'm going to advise you not to put your start date in school because then they start to have questions, right? They start to say, well, why are you in school so long? And that's none of their business. Remember that they only need to know how long you're going to be in school from the point that they meet you, right? That's the only thing that they need to know. So I'm going to say, do not put your start date for school, only put your anticipation. And obviously, this one isn't updated, but let's say it said May 2025. Obviously, they can assume that you're going to graduate in May. And so you don't have to worry about the confusion. Any questions? Okay, and you can see, we do have a note at the bottom, all high school information should be removed. Your degrees matter, right? So you want to make sure you're not relying solely on the things that you accomplished in high school, especially if you are a sophomore and up. I can understand freshmen, and we definitely encourage them to meet with us so we can look at that. But once you become a sophomore, it has to go away, okay? And again, your GPA should be removed and it's optional for your current degree. So again, that are relevant coursework. So you'll see the courses are listed out just kind of in paragraph format. We do that way to prevent you taking up so many lines if you were to like list them downward vertically or stack them. Be sure to only include the course title, not the course abbreviation. So not like engineering 1, 2, 3, they don't know what that is, right? They don't know what you learned in that course. So be sure to list the actual titles of the courses. And the same goes for the project. So after you list your courses and now you're going to list these projects, make sure you title that project. And most of your projects should have a title or at least an objective, right? What you're trying to do for this project. And then you can list the course that you do it for or the department, because if it is a department project for your entire major, you can do that or list the course. Be sure to list the duration of the project. I do see some people put, for example, this would be summer. Let's just say summer 2019, right? Because it started in May. So you can do that too, because typically for internships, they understand the fall, spring, summer semester thing. But once you transition out of that and you're applying for employment, list the duration of the project. It's almost like experience, right? You want to let them know how long you were working on the project. That's going to matter more than just saying fall 2014, fall, it's going to matter way more than that. So be sure to go into detail with what you've done. And I will say this now before we get to it, but your experience section will look just like this, right? It will have what you did, who you did it for, and all the details about it, even for a job, whether it's entry level or an internship. So be sure, again, you use those action verbs that actually demonstrate the impact of the work that you're doing. A lot of times people write words like helped, blah, 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 assisted, blah, 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 worked, blah, blah, blah. Well, all of those words have better words or better synonyms you can use to actually demonstrate what you've done. So no need to list your final grade or the course, abbreviated course thing again. So remember, it's a full course name. Do not list final grades unless specifically required by the employer, but I haven't seen that. But you don't want, again, to put any grades that maybe you're actually not proud of, but that does not mean you didn't do the work, right? So maybe it was a group project. Everyone in the group didn't really pull their weight. You got a B or a C, but you still felt like it was valuable enough to put that you've done the work. That is okay. This is why we say not to list the grade, because the grade does not matter, the experience does. When people wake up every day and they go to work, do you think that they excel at everything they do in their job in the day? No. And this is why we want you to understand that the final grade is not going to matter, because that's not a determinant of how much you learned, right? So you could still get a C or a B and still have learned the same amount as a person who got an A. So keep that in mind, right? And that's a form of taking the stress from yourself and not overthinking things. So this is kind of like a scenario. Picture this: a company is hiring a media production and legal assistant intern. They receive 47 resumes. 7 have the words animation or editing. 3 have the words critical thinking or multitask. And the 3 each had an interview or an invitation at least. 3 of them, so that's the 7 and the 3, that's say 10. 3 of them replied to the invitation, right? Because that happens. You would think everyone who receives an invitation will want the interview. Unfortunately, that's not what happens. So remember that the next time you get an interview invitation, there are people who are declining them. So if you really want the job, you should show up for them. So consider this. Are you listing relevant experiences and accomplishments that align to the job descriptions you want? So out of those 47 resumes, only 10 people received this invitation to interview. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? A bad thing. That means people are just applying for jobs. Either they don't qualify or they're not telling their resume. One of the two is true, right? And it's hard to believe that out of 47 people, only 10 people qualify for that job. So that should show you, and this happens in real life. People are not tailoring their resume. They're not speaking the language of the job, the employer, whatever the case is. And this results in less qualified applicants that they can actually interview. Not to mention, let's say you see on LinkedIn that, let's say 1,000 people apply. Have y'all seen that little thing where it says 500 people applied to this job? And then you get discouraged, right? But two things about that. LinkedIn is not actually tracking how many people apply to the job if it's not LinkedIn Easy Apply. They're tracking how many people clicked apply and took them to the next website. So that's number one. So imagine out of those 500 people who got taken to the next website, and then they said, this is too much, and they clicked off of it. That's the only thing LinkedIn's tracking. Now, if it's LinkedIn Easy Apply, they are tracking who's applying because that is through LinkedIn's platform. Now, imagine out of the 500 that clicked this link, and then half of them said no, or more than half of them said no. And now you are looking at the 500 and now you're discouraged because you're like, people. Well, let this be proof that out of so many people, there's only a small pool of people who are qualified. Okay, so remember that the next time you feel discouraged, the next time you feel like something's too much, just remember how many people may feel the exact same thing you did and how small that pool could actually be. Not to mention, if there are recruiters getting over 100 resumes for any given job, they are using an ATS to parse those out. How many of you know what an ATS is? Applicant tracking system. Every time you apply to a job, if it's not on LinkedIn, not on Indeed, and it takes you to the actual company's website, that is an applicant tracking system. And that system is basically like this house for their careers portal, their people portal, and it has a little bit of AI in there. So if those 47 resumes were on that applicant tracking system and they had the ability to keyword search, that means only these 10 people came up for those specific keywords. So it's safe to say the rest of them literally did not have those keywords anywhere on their resume. So this is why we talk about tailoring your resume, making sure it's relevant and recent, because they're going to be looking at these things. And unfortunately, the rest of those people in that 47 will not be seen. Their resume will not be seen by a recruiter at all. So remember that the next time you're applying for a job. Oh, and we just talked about applicant tracking systems. So it eliminates over 70% of applicants before their resume even reaches the hiring manager. So when you're looking at all these applications, make sure you take your time to put in relevant details from the job description that are applicable to your industry as well. Okay. Oops. So remember, max 2, but it should be 1 given where your experience level is. Avoid pre-designed templates. A lot of people start with a pre-designed template, and I'm not going to ask anyone to incriminate themselves by saying they have one. Don't worry about it. Just know that there's back encoding that exists on those templates, like spacings and indentions and all these things that you cannot see, but for some reason you cannot delete either. If that's you and that you fit in that criteria, just come and see us and we can try to look at, some different options. But I will say that if you have the time and patience, go ahead and take your resume out of those templates, because a lot of times those templates are locked. And so when they're uploaded to an applicant tracking system, what do you think happens when it uses your resume to fill out your application? It distorts information. How many of you have seen that before? Where you upload your resume and let it do what it does and the information's everywhere and it's not in the right spot. You have, job duties in the job title section and it's just not reading things right. That's because the system isn't reading your resume correctly because of formatting, okay? And then if you are preparing a CV, typically they're about 2 or more pages only because you are going into detail about your academics, your projects, your research, things like that. Okay, typically mid or senior level, or if you're going for grad school for a position in academics. So 3 tips again. Remember, fancy might create errors. That first resume is one that you would hand to someone in person and in person only. Do not use that to apply through an ATS or online for several reasons. 1, formatting, but 2, there is not enough information on that first resume to get them to understand exactly what you bring to the table. When you look at the bullet points listed here, Everything's so small compared to how much information you can get on this version. So remember that the next time you are using or developing your resume. Another thing too about this version is that there are too many objects here. These are all lines that show like the percentage bars. So if you're trying to apply to an ATS with that, that may cause a lot of problems. Stick to the basics, clear and concise, remember? And then keywords are and transferable skills. So for example, you see a few highlighted things. Those things allow the employer to understand that you have a conceptual knowledge about something, right? So maybe you're applying for an entry-level role in an occupation that you have not done before, but you have several transferable skills. Maybe 1 second, you mind. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So remember that your transferable skills do matter because they help you get the next job or opportunity, but it's about how you demonstrate and showcase that, okay? Let's see. So we talked a little bit about experience this entire time, but what I want you to remember is ask yourself, am I tailoring my resume or my experience and bullet points to the job description that I want? Because if you don't have a job description in mind, then you are essentially tailoring it for no reason at all, right? Because you're just going off of what you think is in the air in your head, and then next thing you know, you see a job description and your resume doesn't match. So always have the job description side by side for your resume. So consider how it translates to a job and internship when you think about your experience. And so it can transfer over into several roles like this, right? So these are just examples, but there are several more, which is why we encourage you to make an appointment with them. And so the action verb that I did mention, and for those who are just joining in, I know y'all are probably here for branding, and we'll get there in just a second. But on the back of that resume template that's available in the middle of the room, there are the action verbs. So if you're a person who gets stuck on just trying to figure out what words can I use that convey my experience without being repetitive, then that's what it would help you with. So we were gonna do an activity for this one, but we are out of time, unfortunately. However, if you wanted to take a picture, you're more than welcome to do that, or you can just pick up the template. The template will have everything laid out for you. And next to the template is a sample resume. So an actual sample for Shasta Cook that just kind of shows you what things will look like when using this template format. All right, this is another example of what bullet points will look like. So they're very simple, right? So they just say show, speak, and responsible for. Typically, we say not to say the word responsible for because everyone's responsible for something at work. So you'll want to be more detailed, right, about what that looks like. So when you strengthen those, it will look more like this. So you're not responsible for students, but you're now observing them, right? You're not just standing there going, I'm responsible for y'all, but you're actually observing their actions, what they're doing, monitoring, keeping them safe, all of these different things. So when we talk about strengthening our bullet points, you want to make sure you use the right verb tense for each experience and avoid repeating verbs, okay? Make sure you use accomplishment or purpose to strengthen your bullet points. And so these are all optional. So I'm not going to go through each one because they do not apply to everyone. So there are some people who may not have any volunteer experience, and that's okay. But these are the optional sections, right? If you're a part of an org and you want to showcase your leadership ability and skills, you will have an opportunity to do that. Typically, people put their org experience inside of their extracurricular. And if you are just a member, maybe you're just kind of like going to general meetings, learning things, you're not really actively doing any work, you can list that in the extracurricular. But if you're an officer, if you're an ambassador or doing anything differently from just attending, then you're gonna want to put that into leadership experience, right? The word leadership is a keyword, right? That gets people's attention, and so they're going to look in that section. And then one of the last sections that is not optional, definitely required, is gonna be your skills section. So you'll see here, it's an example of a categorized skills section. That just shows the employer that you understand where your skills fit in. So you understand that your experience with Adobe and Canva are design software skills. And so you put that as the category. This is super helpful for someone with a lot of skills, right? If you're someone you just feel like you can do a lot of things, you are comfortable with it, but you need a way to organize them, this is going to be your way to organize them. If you speak multiple languages, we do have a section for multiple languages, and you should include your level and proficiency in that language, okay? Certifications are also there, and then you'll also see that there are some crossed out because we typically do not recommend that you list soft skills, only your hard skills that are measurable, okay? A lot of your soft skills are going to be identified when they speak to you and when you're in your probationary period, first 90 days, things like that. So they're not completely assessing you based on your soft skills. They need to know if you can do the job. And this is why it's important to make sure you put all of your hard skills up top. So we do have VMOC. It's a smart resume platform where you can upload your resume to get line by line recommendations on what you should change. If you have not used VMOC, it is available on our website just by going to uh.edu/UCS, and you'll see the student tab and just explore all of our career resources because they are there and available for you. And of course, utilizing our services are free. So I don't know if anyone knew that, but you can meet with a career counselor literally as much as you like. Once a week, twice a week, it's up to you, but we are here and available for you all. So if you need your resume reviewed independently, please set up an appointment with us so that we can start working with you. Do not wait till the last minute. Yes.
Is that through Navigate as well?
No, so it's through Access UH. You'll click on Cougar Pathway. So here are our save the date. A lot of you may have already gotten this. A lot of you may have gotten this outside when you checked in. So these are our events happening for the spring. If you're looking for a time to connect directly with employers for any internships or jobs, please show up to the career fairs. Make sure you are dressed professionally because you may be denied access. And if you need access to a career closet, we do have one in our office, okay? Any questions? All right. Please ignore that survey. Yes.
Yes. I have two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So I've heard mixed reviews about, putting your graduation date and then as well as reaching out to like the recruiter. People who are like follow-ups on your.
So I'm gonna say this for the graduation date. I've heard the same thing too. However, that only starts to apply the older you get because they don't want to think, oh, you got your degree like 20 years ago and it's not relevant anymore, right? And there is a such thing or a law or act in place to not discriminate based on age against older workers, not younger workers. I don't think a lot of people know that. But in terms of like students, those who are just getting a degree, there may be a little apprehensiveness from employers to hire such a new or young person, right, getting a fresh degree. And I'm gonna say use your best judgment when you are applying, but here's the thing. If you don't put your grad date on your resume, but you have your LinkedIn on your resume, they now get to see a picture of you. So then they start assuming things, right? So you have to like think about the chain of events that happens whenever they see your document. So no grad date, they're gonna think either you didn't get it or they're not sure when you're gonna get it. And so you just want to make sure that you are putting an ease to their mind when they are looking at your documents. And most times when you fill out their application, you're going to have to put their grad date anyway, because it probably won't let you continue. So you may have to check a box that says current or present or something like that, or you have to put a date otherwise. So that's going to be very important because if you are going to give them this document with no date, but they have other ways to access your information, whether it's LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. So you're just creating more of a distrust now between them. So that's my take on the grad date thing. Just use your best judgment. Even if you're applying for internships, I recommend you put your date because there is a requirement, meaning like you must have a year left or you must be currently enrolled. And so if you don't have a date, how will they know you're currently enrolled or how long you have left, okay? So that's gonna be best judgment, but just know that if you're leading breadcrumbs for them to go look, that's gonna create that little thing. And then as for, what was your second?
Basically just, reaching out to people.
Just like follow up. So remember, recruiters are human. We all different. Some like it, some do not. However, how you reach out matters, right? Because you want to make sure it's very genuine. You want to make sure it's very clear and to the point. So like not a lot of fluff, right? They're just not like filling their inbox with this long email and then hoping that they read it. So if you have, and you're in an event that is a person that does not like those types of messages, the simple fact that it's not long and it's to the point would actually just probably make them feel like, okay, whatever. They may not respond because again, they have the choice in, to respond or not, but you have to make sure you control what you can control, which is how you reach out and how much information you put into that. I'm not going to recommend not reaching out because a lot of times how people actually end up getting interviews is because they reached out. Because your eagerness, right? Sometimes recruiters are swamped with several job openings. And so they may have put that one on the back burner and then you just like popped up into their inbox whether it's an email or LinkedIn and they're like, oh yeah, let me see. They may, if they're on LinkedIn, they probably found 5 minutes of free time to do something and they saw your message. And so now with it being back on their mind, they may feel obligated to give you an answer. Even if the answer is, hey, we put a pause on it, or hey, I'm not sure yet, just stay patient with me, whatever. So I'm not going to say not to reach out, but I'm going to say just be mindful of how you reach out and make sure you're not overwhelming them when you are saying things, okay? If you've attached your resume or if you apply for the job, don't feel like you have to go into detail in the message too, when you could just simply attach it there or just let them know, hey, I applied to blah, 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 because they're not going to want to have to read this and read your application. It's going to be so much. So just remember they're human too, but how you reach out will matter. So good question. Any others?
So the part about the skills, you said to kind of categorize them based on jobs and so is that like for a standard resume, would it be too overwhelming? Because I've been told to just focus on like a few hard skills, a few soft skills, and that's short.
So I'm gonna say the soft skills really have no weight because that's you just telling them that you have those things and they're not actually provable. Typically, they can't really assess your soft skills until you work with them because a lot of times we can get through the interview process with being a certain way, but it's only when you keep showing up is when they see your true colors, right? So I do recommend using the categorized method only if they're relevant, right? So using categories does not give us the leniency to put irrelevant skills. You still should put relevancy, but just keep in mind that whenever you are listing them, the soft skills need to be demonstrated in a summary or they need to be demonstrated in your bullet points. So if you want to talk about teamwork or multitasking and things like that, you can demonstrate that in bullet points by saying how you collaborate and how you handle multiple projects in a semester or something like that.
Okay,
So,
and
yeah.
the language part should also be there.
Yes, your languages should be there only because some jobs do have bonuses and requirements if you speak an additional language. Now, if we're talking about programming languages, you're going to need to make sure you actually write the words programming
Yeah.
languages.
But as far as formatting,
Mhm.
it has to be in the same category as the skills, not like separate like languages.
Correct,
Okay.
absolutely correct. Yes. Any other questions? No? Okay, so I'm gonna promise personal branding is short. I've already looked at the slides. Yes, ma'am.
Very, very quick. Thank you all. Now, if you're gonna stay for the personal branding grades, if you are headed out, because I know some students wanted to specifically come to branding for resume. So if you are headed out, just ask that you head out this way. In your surveys that you all should have, you can complete with those, and as you're headed out, there's gonna be a bag that you can drop those in, okay?
Oh, yes. Surveys look like this. They're little like half sheets. We do have pencil and pens located in the middle of the room. Now I'm gonna move into branding and we have a worksheet for branding and we're actually gonna take a second to go through this worksheet. Branding is really simple. How many of you feel like you have a good personal brand? No, no one. You,
I would
okay.
say
Okay, okay, somebody. Now, here's what so our goal today in the next 15 minutes is to make sure you may not feel super confident leaving, but you're going to feel confident about the idea of creating your personal brand. Your personal brand is so important because it's literally what precedes you before someone ever really even meets you, right? It's your LinkedIn profile. It's someone talking about how good you are or how great your work is. And so if there's no one or nothing that they can say, then you don't have a personal brand yet. So think about like student athletes or think about people in organizations on campus, right? Most of them will have a personal brand in their community. And so that's going to be your goal while you're in school is to start creating your personal brand. You can even do it on social media. I know a lot of people who use LinkedIn, Instagram, of course, TikTok, and then it got banned and came back. Anyway, you can use a personal brand. When you do that and you build up who you are, people start to recognize you. Then you grow an audience and then people want to work with you. And when I say work with you, we're not just talking about like freelance things. We're talking about people actually want to employ you and have you do a job for them. And so if you want your work to precede you, you have to start thinking about your personal brand. So what is branding? It's a perception or emotion maintained by a buyer, right? We're going to look at this as kind of like a business transaction of their experience in doing business with an organization or individual. So what is personal branding? Why it's important? I kind of went over that, but I want you all to really seriously think about what is it about you that makes you unique and that will make someone want to work or talk with you, right? So even when I go to work every day, I'm thinking about, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do that. These are my accomplishments. But the fact that I have a brand of showing up and following through, people come to me because they know that I'm going to follow through. So it's as small as doing the same thing over and over until you can do it with your eyes closed, is what lets people see, okay, I know how that person operates. So are you following me? Does that, okay, good. We're going to talk briefly about LinkedIn too toward the end, just so that you can understand how your branding about yourself transition into your social. So remember to showcase your talents, your values, and personality to distinguish yourself. So these things are a little personal, right? Your values are personal. You may have different values, you have different values, you have different values, you have different values, right? Some of them may overlap, and that's cool. But the things that make you unique is your value, your experience, and your talent, because not everyone has the same combination of those things. How you utilize it or leverage it is going to depend on you. Most people can walk into a room and sell $1 million worth of something, right? And we're just sitting here like, how? And it's because one, they believe in their talents, they understand their value, and they understand the people that they are talking to. That's their audience. So if you're someone who's going to be trying to work on your branding, whether it be in person or online, think about who you are talking to. Who is your audience? Is it going to be other people in your same major? Is it going to be employers that are in your field? Who's your audience? And why would they listen to you? So that's what we mean when we talk about building brands. Describe the added value that you bring. Branding can be viewed as your reputation. Okay. So again, that's what I mean when I say people are talking about you and you haven't even met them yet, because they're, just suggesting you, recommending you. It allows you to stand out and attract opportunity. And it does happen, and it happens when you least expect it. Okay. And it helps you communicate your artistic vision. And we're not talking about art as in art, the form. We're talking about you as your unique self, right? So here's the steps for building your brand. See yourself as others do. So basically stare in the mirror, right? That's literally what you're going to do mentally, but also physically. See yourself as others do. First, understand what it is they see when they see you. Then think about your talent, your value, the things that you're going to have to start talking about. And I don't mean that you're going to just walk up to someone and say, hey, what are your values? Like, you're not going to actually say that. They're going to be able to learn that based on the conversations you have with them. A lot of times the friends that we have are because we share similarities, right? We share values, we share talents, we share something that's the same. So remember, how you speak about yourself and the things you speak about can show someone a lot of different things about you. Make sure you deliver your brand with clarity and consistency. Gain experience and track accomplishments. Promote yourself, build relationships, and develop your portfolio. If you don't have a portfolio, your LinkedIn is your portfolio. You can showcase a lot of different things on LinkedIn. So if you're a digital media student or someone who does art and have different things to actually demonstrate, a portfolio will be best. If you're someone who maybe just wants to offer a service, or you want to look for employment and it's not really like a design type of thing, then LinkedIn will be better for you because you get to actually go into detail about your experiences, your projects, different things like that. Are we following? Perfect. All right, so on this page, I do have this handout. The handout is located in the middle of the room, but I will put it up here. Sorry. Thank you, thank you.
There's pretty much, all right.
All right, so I wanted you all to have a chance to actually think for a second and look at the first few boxes. So box 1 says, what are your values? Box 2, what are your professional career goals? Box 3, what differentiates you from your competition? So again, look at these brands here at the top. Are they recognizable?
Yeah.
Is there anyone in here that does not recognize one of these brands? All right, so good. That's the point, right? It needs to be recognizable. Obviously, they have years in the game, right? 100 years, whatever. They've been around, especially Coca-Cola. They've been around for a while, which we get. And we've only walked this earth for some years, right? Nothing compared to that. However, what you do in the time that you have impacts your brand and reputation, right? So when you look at Coca-Cola, and many of you may not know this, and you just think it's that one drink, Coca-Cola, but it's a company with several drinks. Several things you have probably consumed that you do not know is owned by Coca-Cola. And it's because that's their brand. You have a question?
One big one, Dasani, people don't realize,
Dasani.
and they, one fact with Dasani, they actually put like something in it that makes you thirstier. So don't.
So I don't know there, but.
Exactly, so, yeah, I definitely, yeah,
It's a reason why Coca-Cola is the top brand, but.
that's the reason why.
Yeah, so remember, it's a brand, right? They're building a brand and nothing's going to stop them. They're going to keep building it. That's the same mindset you should have though. No one should stop you building your brand. Now, obviously, I'm not gonna get into ethics and things like that because let's remember, if that's your values, if ethics are your values, make sure to keep that in the forefront of your mind, right? So when we talk about your brand, it's your reputation. You see how we all know what Coca-Cola is, but Coca-Cola is, sorry. But then we had someone also say, but wait, I know this and you may not know that. So keep that in mind, right? Because people are going to be able to say, yeah, so-and-so is really good. And then you're gonna have someone else that says, but wait, maybe not. So remember what you're building, be consistent. Don't leave room for error. Because that's what happens. And we can go on and on about Apple too, right? They stop your phones and you gotta update, and it's just so many different things, right? And so remember, as a human though, you have the ability to stick to your values and your ethics. You're not a corporation, you are a person. So remember, your ethics, your values, whatever it is, will precede you. Because depending on the information that you put out into the world to other people, it's gonna say a lot about you. So take a few minutes to look at those top 3 questions. Feel free to write in there, or if you just want to brainstorm in your head, that's fine too. Work with someone, maybe you need to talk it out and ask each other, what are your career goals? You can do that. But one of the questions I want you to pay attention to is the 3rd one. What differentiates you from your competition? Because that's the problem that we all have. We struggle trying to stand out because we're all doing the same thing, okay? So I want you to just take 2 minutes to focus on those questions.
Just to let y'all know, I'm more pizza, you're at play.
And I have a few more questions up on the screen too, just in case you are a fast thinker and you want to be challenged a little more.
And like she said, feel free to talk to each other, right? And this will kind of maybe introduce you as you get ready to go and get interviews. So feel free to talk to one another.
Hi, everybody in the chat or in the call. We just want to make sure everyone is good. We will definitely make sure each of you that are joining us virtually today, we will make sure that you receive the resources that Ariana is referencing in the presentation.
I'll give y'all about 60 more seconds.
She mentioned that you can fill it out.
You can fill it out, you could think about it, talk about it. But just start thinking about it. I won't ask anyone to share if you don't want to share. I just want you to have that moment of talk. Of actually let people really feel heard this kind of thing. Because a lot of times, once you leave here, a lot of times we don't have time for this kind of stuff, and I understand. And that's why I want to remind you that career services is here, right? If you need to sit with us and actually write out your branding, your LinkedIn, your resume, whatever it is, that's what we're here for. We help you make this process easier so that you're not feeling stressed and then essentially neglecting it and then stressed because you neglected it. So keep that in mind.
It just. I mean, I just started this semester, but like, I have a lot of experience overall, so like.
I'm gonna say two, you wanna make sure you add some bullet points in there. So that's gonna be, that's take you out.
Well, I didn't want to go too much.
Yeah.
Because. Yeah. It's.
Yeah, and then also project. Project, like, relevant health project. So remember, your intent doesn't have to be just getting.
Yeah, I just started like this morning. This is something I just did.
Okay. Yeah, if you wanna do some more observations, that's what I'm putting in.
Some career
Uh,
support services.
Go through access, you would change the your pathway. And that's our platform system.
Do you want the councils we can make a payment? Do we get to choose or?
Yes, you do get to choose. When you are looking at the module, so go through access UH, click on Cougar Pathway. If you don't see Cougar Pathway, you're gonna have to contact like the registrar or someone, because that's a waste thing. But then Cougar Pathway belongs to us. You will be able to schedule an appointment and choose the person you want to see availability for. So when if you were to choose me, just be sure to, denote the location, because my location could be here, Sugarland, or they're all gonna be virtual, but you can choose if it's in person or if it's virtual. Okay. I have about 2 days in Sugarland and 2 days here, depending on events and things like that. But all of those sessions are also virtual, so just, pay attention to how you know. Okay. All right, does anyone have any questions about the branding worksheet? No? How are y'all feeling about it? Or about your brand? You have an idea of like where you want to go or how you want to end up? Yeah, no? I see some no, okay, some nods, some shake, that's okay. So that's why we talk about these things, right? These are things that you won't learn about in class, right? You're just sitting in a class and your professor's talking about the content and they're telling you nothing about your brand, right? Like how to build it, because that's what career services is for. We're here to remind you that these things are still important. And while you're obtaining your degree, you should also be focusing on where you want to go, okay? So we talked about how to build your personal brand, but what I want you to remember too, is to think about the social media channels, right? I feel like I don't have to say it, but I will say it. Mind what you post on social media because it follows you. And if you don't believe me, just try Googling yourself and then clicking images and clicking around, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to find a piece of information that relates to you. So remember what you're posting on the internet, people can see. We are in the day and age of screenshots. So people may take a screenshot if you post something really crazy. And then next thing you know, they have it forever until they delete it. So keep in mind that the things you post say a lot about you, and thus that becomes your brand, right? Um, think about, your family, your friends, professional groups, potential employers, and the whole world, right? Because you're putting it out there for them to see. What is your objective for each social media channel, right? Because different channels have different purposes. So be sure that you're clear on the use of that channel and that you are using it wisely and effectively. And then choose links and media that add value to your brand, right? Don't just put things there because you have them. If it's not valuable or does not contribute to what you're trying to communicate, you're going to want to either revisit that or just leave it off completely. Okay. Show you're the right choice. Decide what you want people's first impression of you to be. And once you do that, everything you do from that point should contribute to that. Make sure you make a strong LinkedIn profile so your professional profile shows up in Google first. Did y'all know that? When you type in your first and last name, if you're on LinkedIn, your profile's gonna come up as one of the first links to click on, especially if you have a unique name. So, yeah, you must have done it a couple of times. It's true. It's really true. Like you can literally search someone, and if they have a profile and that name is pretty unique, one of the first things is their LinkedIn profile that comes up. So please make sure your profile is ready to go, okay? Before you start advertising it. Stay active on social media and build your online presence. Maybe liking people's things, reposting, commenting. Maybe they dropped some hidden knowledge and you really found it helpful. It's okay to comment, thank you for this. It's okay to do that. And when you do that, LinkedIn is a social media platform, which means your profile is now being seen by other people that it otherwise wouldn't have been seen by had you not commented, right? Few comments under a person who has 6,000 followers and 1,200 connections, and you only have 50, and you comment under their post, everyone else who's going to go comment under their post will see your comment. So now you just gain visibility, especially if you're trying to build a brand that is really important. Okay. Again, be careful what you post online that could harm your personal or professional brand. So there's a difference between profile and resume, and they have the same goal. However, on your profile, you get to add a lot, right? It's not just this one document streamline. You can't talk too much about something. Your profile is different, right? So it could speak to all potential employers and not just a single one, because if you're giving a resume to one job, that's for that job, versus your entire profile can show how versatile you are. But it's up to you how organized you keep. Goes into more detail with skills, projects, certifications, and all other types of sections. There are so many sections you can add on LinkedIn. It also allows other professionals and employers to interact, learn, and potentially contact you. And it contains recommendations and endorsements. How many of you have any recommendations or endorsements on LinkedIn? Is it from like professors or peers?
The seniors.
Seniors, okay. Yeah, okay. So recommendations and endorsements kind of serve as almost like references, pretty much, just not formal. Those are people who have voluntarily chosen to put on your profile how great you are about something or how well you did in something. So if you wanted to obtain more of those, you can. Don't rely on them as if they're going to be the determining factor for someone wanting to employ you, because they still have to do a formal background or reference check. However, if you want it to look good on your profile, it's okay to ask someone for a reference or for a recommendation, especially if you get to the point where you start to offer services, right? So if a consumer says, oh, I want them to help me with blah, 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 it may look good to have a recommendation or an endorsement on your profile because it's further solidifying their choice in working with you. It's basically a Google review, pretty much. Okay. So when you're building your profile, obviously you have, how many of you do not have a profile on LinkedIn? 8. Okay. So if your account is set up, make sure you understand the difference between your profile and resume. Take a great photo, please. Really great. Forward facing, not side, not from up here. Forward facing photo. and edit your profile. Optimize it to make sure it screams what you want it to say, right? The choice is yours, right? There's no right or wrong. There's no, well, wrong meaning like inappropriate, obviously, but no right or wrong in terms of who you are. You have to own it and you have to stand on it, okay? So remember, optimizing your profile will matter. All right, and for those who are new to joining in, this is our infamous flyer that you probably have already seen or received in the front desk. But again, these workshops are to help you prepare for a lot of these different events. So you're here to learn about resumes, networking, branding, all of these different things that you will literally need at the next career fair. So if you're planning on attending the STEM career fair, that is happening in about 3 weeks. And this is what these workshops are for, to help you feel confident and to start working on these things so that you're not walking into here nervous, even though you may still be a little nervous, but that you actually have an idea of what to do. Okay. If you wanted to get a digital or get to our calendar, you can scan here to get to the calendar, but you all should have a card and we do have some outside. Again, please ignore the survey on here and take the survey on the chairs. If you do not have a survey, there may be one in front of your chair or something like that. But please, if you are leaving from this session, just mark your thoughts on the survey. Let us know which session you listened to. And we will have a Dropbox out there for you. But it's valuable. Every semester, we review our surveys and we look at the data and we want to understand what we're doing wrong and what we're doing right. Part of that is our branding. So even as an office, we focus on our branding. We want to know what you find valuable and what you're probably like, don't do that again. Let us know because then we will be able to put that into it, right? So yes.
Planning to stay till Thursday, do I wait?
Yes, you can wait. If you're staying for multiple, there should be the check boxes for you to mark all the ones that you are listening to. So I know I probably talked a lot and I do appreciate those who have stayed throughout the whole thing. And I am welcoming those who have just came in to hear the next few sessions. So again, my name is Ariana O'Quinn. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hayes and she's going to talk to you about the next two topics.
Let's give Ariana a round of applause for that. Because I don't think that you all understand how hard it is to present their material, right? And just keep it going. So thank her.
It's my personal brand.
Yes. No, thank you. And let me know if you need anything.
Okay, I'm gonna swap out papers really quick here. Actually, do y'all prefer I just send them around? Yeah, instead of y'all being nuts. Yeah. Okay, so she's gonna talk about the next two topics, but here are her handouts.
Would someone mind helping her pass those out? I was just gonna say, can someone just very quickly, thank you so much. And very quickly, you all, as they are passing out the papers, welcome first and foremost, just to give you all some information, just housekeeping. If you have to go to the restroom, feel free to go towards the back and out that doors. This is a come and go, right? We do have more pizza. Ariana will be standing at the back, so we can definitely get you more. Of course, questions, you're gonna have them. The material that I'm gonna go through, we're just gonna power hour it, okay? We're gonna get through it. So definitely feel free to ask any question. If you need to get up, stretch, maybe this is a good time to do that. Right.
There you go. Thank you. So everyone should have full copies.
Okay, thank y'all.
Thank you.
My network.
And again, the resume template and sample will be left out here, and so will the branding workshop.
All right, everybody. I'll wait till everyone kind of sits. Y'all are headed out? Okay, I'll wait for y'all to. Thank y'all for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy.
Yes, thank you.
All right, everyone. So, as Ariana mentioned, my name is Dr. Olivia Hayes. I serve as one of the career development specialists in University Career Services. And so today I'll be talking to you
within this power hour about interviewing and networking. And so there are going to be some things that are going to kind of intertwine with one another in terms of starting with networking and how that is going to lead into interviewing, right? So definitely I like to say go on this journey with me, okay? Because it will be a journey, but definitely go on the journey with me. All right. All right, so I like to kind of start with misconceptions, right? Different things like that. So one of the things I want you all to do is I'm going to read the first bullet, and if this resonates with you, I want you to pop your hand up. All right, if it doesn't resonate with you, it's okay. But if it resonates with you as I'm reading, pop your hand up. All right, so these are going to be some common networking misconceptions, right? So networking consists of solely going to career fairs, big company events, and maybe even a few smaller special events. If you feel that that is like, yes, networking, I have to go to a career fair in order to be a successful networker. Do you feel that way? Raise your hand. It's okay. That's okay, right? So it can be that way, but not always, right? Maybe you need to brag about yourself if you're networking. You feel like you have to do that. Who feels that way? Okay, so good networking, right? It involves asking questions, listening, right? And we're gonna talk about some of these different, I call them tidbits, right? I talk with my hands, y'all, so y'all see me doing all of these things. I used to be a former professor here, so yeah, right? So I like to move around and interact. I'm not the most confident or extroverted. I don't think networking works for me. How many of you feel that way? Okay. I used to ask students like, okay, networking, describe one word. Is it like, ugh, I hate it. Ugh, I don't even want to, don't even say the word networking around me because I don't like it. How many people feel that way? And that's okay. So I am here to let you know, you all, to find what's right for you. I am the ultimate networker, and you'll figure out what that means. But I love people. I love talking to people. I love asking questions, and I love understanding who you are, your story, and just different things like that. Okay, so these are just some common misconceptions, and so I want you to think about this. What word comes to mind, or maybe a thought or a feeling? All right, when you think of networking, and just shout it out. Stressful, social climbing. I like that. Social climbing. We gotta climb. We gotta get.
Judged, which I mean, I guess I do that for others, for me.
Okay.
I judge me instead, before they do it.
Okay. That is a different way to put it. Interesting. And you mentioned stressful. Is it because of the nerves and the, oh my God, I have to maybe do a prep talk with myself to say, okay, calm down, be good, girl. Okay. Is that kind of how it is?
Yeah, I like what she was saying about like, you still judge, like, oh wait, did I say that right? Like, oh no.
Yes, yes. All of this is going to play a part because think about it. Let's just say you go into an interview and you walk out and you're like, man, did I answer that question right? Did I say the right thing? Right. So all of this is going to be a part of the journey, right? So these are literally just the facts, right? But in today's competitive job market, I'm just going to be honest with you, you should network, right? You should want to network. As Ariana mentioned with your brand is an extension of networking, right? I like to say that it is our job to show you how to articulate who you are on the paper, but it's also our job to show you how to show up and be confident and articulate who you are in front of an organization, a company, or an employer, right? And that is where we're going to talk about how do you even build your confidence to get ready to go into the world of networking, right? And so it really starts with understanding who you are and what your brand is, as Ariana mentioned before coming into this segment, all right? Career fairs and networking events provide opportunities, right? To meet potential employers, expand your network. There's going to be a point where I'm going to ask you all, like, hey, do you have a LinkedIn? If you do, there's going to be a time where we're going to do an activity. And if you do have a LinkedIn, I'm going to show you how to pull up your QR code. And let's just say you're at a career fair and an employer walks up to you and the employer says, hi, how are you? My name is Dr. Hayes. Nice to meet you. Yes. Here's my QR code. Would you mind connecting with me on LinkedIn? Right? And you're like, I don't even have that. I don't even know how to do that. So I'm going to show you all how to network and pull up your QR codes and talk amongst yourselves and network with each other. That's how you expand and build your network. Okay. All right. So once again, an engagement activity. Feel free. You can raise your hand. Okay. How many of you attend many types of professional events? So this could be maybe you have gone to a professional reception, maybe you've gone to a career fair, right? How many of you feel confident networking in formats that have over 200 people? I do, because I know that I don't have to just talk to the 5 people that's in the room. Oh, yes, absolutely. How many of you feel, I know how to network in a casual or informal setting? Like maybe you're with your friends, maybe you're with your family, maybe you're volunteering, or maybe you're like me, you go grab a coffee, and you're networking at the coffee shop, right? How many of you feel more comfortable in settings with people around you who are also new like you? So like if you're in a setting and everybody, for example, this setting, right? You feel confident and maybe comfortable because everybody's here for the same goal, which is to learn, right? Okay, good, good. So keep these things in mind. Okay. So overall, what is it? Right. So this is going to be the process of building and maintaining relationships with individuals who can potentially offer support, information, guidance, opportunities related to your career or personal development. But then it involves establishing the connection. So I want to focus on these bolded terms, right? Because that's really going to be the gist of networking as a whole. So building your network, and we'll talk about that, maintaining your network, okay, and then establishing those connections. All right, how many of you have already taken the necessary steps to build your network as it pertains to your industry or your major? Okay, what are some things you've done?
So I have my portfolio that I'm developing.
Okay.
So that's part of building my brand and patients. And then I've added every little experience, club, award, anything into my LinkedIn. So that also serves as like a representation.
Mhm. Absolutely. LinkedIn. Oh, excuse me, LinkedIn. How many of you have started building connections on LinkedIn and connecting with people, expanding and maintaining your network on social media platforms like that? Anybody? Good, good. So we're going to talk about some things as it pertains to, for example, where do you even begin? Where do you identify, right? Where do we even start with networking as a whole? So this is going to be where if you're trying to identify some areas to begin networking, maybe in terms of the world of technology, as she mentioned, you start with LinkedIn, right? We do have an upcoming LinkedIn workshop that if you wanted to tune in virtually to that, I believe it's in a couple of weeks. The same place that you RSVP for this, you can RSVP for that. But we'll be going over LinkedIn and how to enhance your profile if needed. Okay. Maybe you're networking on campus. How many of you have done that? Meaning you have gone to events, career fairs. How many of you are in student orgs in the room? Good. And so that is also a part or a portion of you building your network as well, because you are in the room with other peers who have like-minded goals like you. So this is another way that you can also network on campus. A community. How many of you volunteer, you work, right, in the community itself? That's also a way that you can expand and build your network. Conferences. Anybody, local, regional, state level, in terms of conferences, right? I highly encourage you to attend conferences to really build, maintain, and establish those connections. Even if it's not a conference, maybe you're going to a symposium on campus. I'll mention like the AI symposium that is going to be coming up. Maybe you go to that AI symposium and you're networking, right, with companies. Maybe you're networking with individuals who work at those companies. And so these are ways that you can go to these events and start to build your network. Any questions about this? All right. So who do you network with? So not just where, but in these different sectors, who should you be trying to network with, right? So for example, if you are in a virtual space, maybe you are trying to connect with your friends, your classmates. As I mentioned, I used to teach a class here where at the end of every single class, every student would connect with me on LinkedIn. And I love that, right? Because I'm able to see the beautiful accomplishments that they're continuing to do as they've left, not just U of H, but also left my class, right? So I think that that is a wonderful way to connect with your professors, connect with any advisors, just connect with mentors, anybody, okay, in a virtual setting. I see your hand. Let me get through this slide. Classmates, coworkers, alum. This is where I want to challenge you to connect with former UH alumni. Okay, because guess what, y'all? They may be able to give you a job. They might be able to hire you. So this is important to be able to connect. One of the things I've mentioned is that, for example, at our career fairs, that is a location where you can network. At our career fairs, we have the ability to have employers that will come and say, I'm an alum of U of H. So we'll give them a nice little pin. And this will let you know as an attendee that the person that you're speaking with is on the other side of the table, but they was once on the side that you were on as a student. Right? And so that is where you could also build your network, right? Expand your network. Makes sense? Okay. Campus, once again, classmates, student orgs, peer advisors, mentors. As it pertains to the community and conferences, right? Maybe in the community, you're building a network with your coworkers, right? Maybe y'all are trying to figure out what is our next step together. I don't know. But maybe you're building your network there. Maybe supervisors, your family and friends are a network, right? I call that your personal network. Now, professors, staff, different things like that could be considered a professional network, okay? Conferences, this is where you're gonna challenge yourself, okay, to build at least one new connection. How many of you never attended a career fair, ever? Meaning you've never attended a fair, okay? Okay, so with that being said, I'm not going to say go to a conference, right? It's now my duty as a professional to say, yeah, you all, let's not start at career fairs. Let's maybe start at a career mixer, right? And so I do want to stress that the difference between the two is that maybe, remember the misconceptions that we were talking about? Maybe you feel that 200 people is just too much. And you're like, I cannot do 200 people. Maybe I can do 50. And that's where you go to the mixer, because the career mixer is going to be a little bit more smaller and intimate. And you could actually maybe have that interpersonal dialogue with the actual employer, and not have to worry about chaos and things going on. So the career mixer is on a lower scale. Maybe you want to start there in terms of building your network and establishing those connections. Compared to the fair, you could really expect those 200 or more people to be there. Okay, any questions? Saw your name. Go ahead.
I did benefit a lot from reaching out to alumni, especially the ones that are in my major, in my program. But as far as professors, that professionals for me, like connect with them on LinkedIn and stay in touch with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, I would connect with my students during our LinkedIn lecture. I would even encourage them to add me. I honestly encourage you, and the reason being, how many in the room you want to go to graduate school? Want to go to graduate school? The reason why it's important to build and establish these connections is because some of the graduate schools that you might apply to might say, hey, we need a letter of recommendation from a former professor. And if they get that specific, then you know that, man, maybe I should have built or established that connection a little bit deeper with that professor. Okay, so to your point, I do encourage you, if you have that one professor that you're like, man, you really were good throughout my 4 years, really build and establish or maintain that connection with me. Okay, so I say do it. It's not just about getting into graduate school, but it's also about getting an internship. Okay, I'm gonna go here and then I'll go there. Go ahead.
How would you begin that conversation with your professors, like your current professors versus like your past ones too? Because I've had professors that I like have a good connection with, but I didn't necessarily like professionally like get in touch with them like on LinkedIn.
Sure. So you're wanting to know, so she's wanting to understand how to start the conversation to build that professional connection or maintain that connection. Yeah. We're gonna role play. All right. You're gonna be me. You're Dr. Hayes. Right. So you're Dr. Hayes and you have just finished teaching your lecture. All right.
So this is the time where your students come up to you and they ask questions, we laugh, we joke, we have a good time. Okay. So I'm a student and I'm coming up to Dr. Hayes because I am wanting to build my connection. I'm wanting to do all of that. So, all right. Class is over. Hey, Dr. Hayes, how are you doing?
You?
Good. I really enjoyed the lecture today. I just want to let you know that the lecture was really, really good. And so I really would maybe want to schedule a time to meet with you. Maybe we could go for coffee. You like coffee?
Yeah, I do like coffee.
You know,
No, professors,
but
like
yes,
going for coffee.
yes, you can go. Because if I need to talk to you about your grade, where we gonna go? Outside in the rain? No. So professors will meet over at like Cougar Ground for coffee. You can have lunch, right? That's not illegal to do that. But as it pertains to maintaining a professional connection and establishing that network, hey, I just maybe want to go and talk about, I don't know, I want to go talk about my grade. Hey, Dr. Hayes, I'm graduating and I would just like to connect with you on LinkedIn, just to stay in touch. Okay. I have a student, he took my class and he messages me every month just to check in, just to be like, hey, Dr. Hayes, what you doing? On LinkedIn. And I love that because at least I know he's doing good. At least I can see the wonderful things that he's doing. All right. So I say, as a professor who has had this, and you could go look on my LinkedIn right now, by the way, you will see I have over about 500 connections. Really not. You want me to be honest?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, if we do, an UH alumni in our field, how do I track down like alumni in my, department?
Oh, I could go all day. That's a good question. Okay, so again, I wish this was LinkedIn because I have little tidbits that I can show y'all. So one of the things I would recommend you doing, if you have your LinkedIn, you could go to LinkedIn, right? And you're taking notes. I like that. I like that too. You could go to LinkedIn and in the search bar, you could type in, what's your major?
Mathematics.
Mathematics. Are you wanting to teach or do anything specific?
I would like to get a PhD.
Okay, nice. So what you could do, and this goes for everybody in the room. You could go to LinkedIn, you could type in mathematics, UH, and I guarantee you, it will change your life because you will see different professors, staff, you'll see students, you'll see alum. You can even type in mathematics alum UH. And it will bring up individuals that you could go and look at their profile. I tell people that it's not weird to look at people's profile. It really is useful. It really is. And the reason I say that is because maybe you're finding a love. Maybe you're struggling to find a PhD program. Maybe you go look at their profile and you see a PhD program that you're like, maybe I reach out to them and maybe get some information about the journey or their process. So that's how you would do that or could do that. Trying to think, does UH have a little portal for y'all? Like,
No, but they do have a section, if you look up your major, you can see if there's like a UH alumni, they recognize certain alumni if they were in clubs or if they were ambassadors of certain things. So that also gives you an idea of what to apply to, what kind of clubs can I get involved with.
Yep, yep. And we can talk more about that, but that's one of the ways that on LinkedIn you could really leverage and build your network and expand it. Okay, that's one of the ways that you could do that. Okay, any questions? All right, so how do you even succeed with all of this and knowing what networking is and just knowing where and identifying, right? So how do you succeed at these events? And so just kind of talking about these things and just gonna kind of go through these. I'm not gonna read all these, but defining your goals, right? Ariana talked about understanding and defining your brand, right? Defining your goals goes a long way. So for example, am I gonna go to the fair and talk to 20 employers compared to 5? It's a legitimate question, right? Am I gonna go to the career fair with my friends or am I gonna go by myself? That's a legitimate question, right? Am I going to the career fair to search for internships or am I going to the career fair to search for jobs? Am I going to the career fair to get 50 connections? Or am I going to the career fair to get one? See, it doesn't have to be 50, it could be one person, right? So overall, you all, understanding who you are will allow you to create your goals and feel a little bit more confident walking into whether a career fair, whether it is a interview, anywhere, right? So defining your goals. So what is your objective? What's your thesis statement? I like to say that. What's your personal thesis statement? Okay, what are we going for? What are we looking for? Right? Um, Developing a professional identity. That's that brand, right? Ariana, did we talk about elevator pitch?
No, not at all.
Okay, so I believe you all on the back of the personal branding worksheet is going to be an elevator pitch worksheet that in addition to the personal branding statement you all, is that you're welcome. In addition to the personal branding statement, how many of you have heard of an elevator pitch? Okay, and they say that that's what, like a 30-second commercial, right? In addition to your personal brand, I do encourage you as you prepare to go to networking events to potentially prepare an elevator pitch. I wish we had time to do an activity to where you all could do it, but me, you're Dr. Hayes, and we're gonna run this thing, we're gonna run it, all right? So ultimately, let's just say I'm going to a networking event. Hello, my name is Dr. Olivia Hayes. I am a current career development specialist at the University of Houston. I obtained my bachelor's degree in history and I minored in political science from Prairie View University. I then got my master's degree in curriculum and instruction from Prairie View University. Then I later got my doctorate in ethical leadership from University of St. Thomas. I'm here today because I am trying to potentially find a internship, specifically in math. And I have about 4 years of experience tutoring students in math, and I'm now at the point that I'm looking for an internship. Hey, I think I did.
I think you're hired.
So it wasn't the best, right? But ultimately, that elevator pitch is a time for you to pretty much say, this is who I am. Please hire me, market me, please hire me. Okay. It's pretty much how you're going to show up and market yourself. Okay. So we do encourage you not to have it perfect, but to just have something. So we're not just going to walk up at the event and say, hi. Because are we waiting on them? Or no, they're waiting on you. So we're not just gonna do that. So that is where the elevator pitch worksheet and the personal branding statement really be beneficial. And so we do have a service. If you want to come in, we can help you with all of this, right? We can help you. We can help you. And so developing this identity, right? Ariana talked about the resume and spelling it out on paper. This is where now we have to build the confidence to say, okay, this is who I am on the paper, but this is who I am showing up physically in this space. So we have to show up and be marketable. Okay. So what is your style? Yes, this is a such thing, right? Identifying your style. So you heard me ask you, do you want to go network with 200 people in the room compared to 20 people in the room? Okay, so what is your style? So deciding what settings that you want to go to. So for example, like I mentioned, are you want to go to the fair? Do you want to go to the mixer? Do you want to go to the workshop? Do you want to go to Cat's Bag? Who's been Cat's Bag? Y'all like that event? It's like 1,000 people. So do y'all thrive in those spaces? In Cat's Back spaces, do y'all thrive in that? Do you network? Do you feel you can network in a Cat's Back space? It's too loud. Okay, well, yeah. So deciding what setting you will attend, I think having the goals, like I said, setting these goals for yourself is important. So when you know that you're going to the career fair, I'm going to the fair. I'm talking to 2 people and I'm leaving after 2. If that's your goal, that's your goal. I'm going to the career fair just to get all the free stuff off the table. If that's your goal, that is your goal. Okay. How many of you work better with a friend attending an event with you? Yeah. How would you feel if I said, is the friend gonna get the job with you? Or are they gonna go in the interview with you?
Yeah. So a lot of times at career fairs, we'll see friends, we'll see everybody coming together. And I like to say, come together, but break off and when you get in the actual fair, okay? And that's okay. Sometimes we need a little push and shove from our friends that support us the most. So that is completely okay. But definitely understand and identify your style because that's going to allow that pressure and that stress to really come down. I know me, I love networking, right? Sometimes, and this is we can go past this, but sometimes I find it hard to network in certain spaces that I could go all day, but sometimes I find it hard to network in spaces where everyone is trying to like it's just chaos. I find it hard to network in spaces like that if there's no order, there's no structure, right? I understand that sometimes you're gonna get thrown into spaces. But yeah, like if there's structure and if there's order, I feel that I'm able to keep my pressure down and I'm able to network effectively, right? If I'm walking into a space and I'm like, I don't know what is then at that point I'm like, I don't even want to talk to anybody. I'm just gonna maybe go find me a quiet place and maybe talk to you when I'm getting my lunch in the assembly line or something. It's okay, right? There are times now I'm finding that and I'm in a sorority, right? I don't even want to go to none of those events, right? To network and do different things. So it's okay. And so what I'm saying is that some days you want to network and some days you don't. And that's fine too. Okay. So keep that in mind. All right. So setting these goals, as I kind of talk through these, how many people are you going to talk to? How many people are you going to introduce yourself to? Right. If your goal is 3 people, maybe shoot up to 5. Right. One of the things that goes along in terms of setting these goals is also in terms of why we're here, which is career fair preparation. And one of the things that I would encourage you to do is unfortunately, you probably won't be able to do it until the day of when you get to the fair. But look and see who's coming to the career fair. Because at that point, you will be able to say, there are only 2 companies that I kind of are interested in. So I know that I don't need to go to all 80 booths because I'm only going to need to go to those 2. That's how you can keep your pressure down and prepare and set those goals, right? So we do have Cougar Pathway that you can go and look to see who's coming, right? And this is where you can set those goals to say, I'm only going to talk to 5 people, and that's it. And I'm leaving. Maybe you go, you don't talk to anybody. And that's fine too. And let me tell you why. Maybe you're just there to be in the atmosphere and take it all in and see what's happening and observing, and then you leave. That's okay too, right? So set your achievable goals. How many business cards do you ask for? Right? Are you even going to ask for the business cards? We're now at the point where, like I mentioned with the LinkedIn QR codes, right? Are you going to say, hey, would you mind connecting with me on LinkedIn? Right? What is going to be that exchange? Right? It shouldn't stop at the table. This is where we say maintaining that connection, right? You're establishing it by walking up to the table and saying hi, or would you mind connecting with me? But when you walk away from the table, we got to maintain the connection, right? We gotta stay connected. What event are you gonna go to this month, right? So for example, Ariana mentioned almost in every slide you see the save date. Are you gonna go to everything on there starting in February? Or are you gonna go to only the mixers? I see people pulling out their cards. I love it. But are you only gonna go to the mixers? Are you only gonna go to the fairs? Right? So setting these achievable goals for yourself. Are you planning to join anything? Right? Are you going to any conferences? So setting some achievable goals for yourself, I think will be very, very beneficial as you get ready to go into these settings. Okay? Yeah.
What's the difference?
Perfect question. And I don't mind mentioning it again because I think you maybe came in a little late. So the difference, and this is for everybody, the difference between the two is that a career mixer is probably going to have on a scale of maybe between 1 and 40 employers, maybe 30 companies and employers, right? And just to set the foundation, we have typically our career mixers in like the ballroom or the multi-purpose room, really the multi-purpose room. The career fair is going to be between 1 and 100 employers. So that career fair is in the Houston room. So just imagine cats back, but just booths and just lines. Yeah. Okay. So I would like to say the career fair is more chaotic than the mixer. And so I love both of them. Like I said, depending on what your goals are, that is where I'm like, if you know that networking in a setting or a space of 100 employers is going to be chaotic, then maybe you go to the mixer that is only going to be like 20 or 30, because you're actually able to have that intimate conversation. And you don't have to worry about like walking up to the table, because I see it a lot of times at career fairs. Students will walk up to the table and feel like they have to rush through their elevator pitch or talking because of the line and everything that's going on behind them. And I'm here to tell you, hmm, take your time. Tell them who you are and do what you do and don't worry about anybody behind you. Okay? Yeah.
So usually they have some kind of positions that they already have in mind, what they're gonna hire for.
Yeah.
So do we try to ask them about what kind of opportunities they're having, or is this kind of just like get the information and go?
So I would say, and that goes into the preparation. Typically they will post the jobs and internships that they're currently recruiting for in the portal prior. And if that's the case, then from there, I would not encourage you to walk up to the table to say, "Hi, what are you currently recruiting for?" Because sometimes they will expect you to already know what they're currently recruiting for. And the reason being is because some students will complete the application before attending the fair. And, from there, they'll be like, "Hi, I'm for the job. What's that?" Like, "I applied for it. What's up?" And sometimes the employers will be like, "What? We haven't started the process yet, but thank you. I will be sure to, keep that in mind." So, I would say the more you prepare, the more standoutish you will look, rather. Sometimes applying before looks good because you're able to walk up to the table. And sometimes employers will be like, "I remember your name. I remember seeing your application." So sometimes applying beforehand would be good because at least you're showing the persistence, to have the eagerness and the interest in the role or, the company. So I say, like I said, set your achievable goals. You can constantly come in and meet with us and we can definitely build that confidence. Okay? So being genuine and authentic, I love authenticity. As I mentioned about walking up to the table, right? Just be yourself. Just be yourself. Walk up to the table. Sometimes, like if you're like me, I will say something that is funny and we'll start a conversation and we'll just be laughing. So try to be serious, but be authentic. Okay. Approach the interactions, right? So for example, not to pick on her, but when I walked up to her and I wanted to shake her hand, and it was like, like, oh, but it was because she had, something in her hand. She was eating her food. But when you walk up to an employer, you are supposed to, "Hi, how are you?" You look in their eyes and you give them a firm handshake. Okay, and this is going to go, and we're going to get ready to go into interviewing, but definitely being genuine and authentic. Okay, listening and learning. So walking up to the table, and if they're speaking to you about an opportunity, are you oh, give me just a sec. Like, are you paying attention? Are you listening? Are you showing that you're interested, right? Are you present? I think that this is probably going to be the most important thing because if you're listening to them, you're going to show them that, like I said, you're interested. If you're nodding, doing, certain mannerisms and things. And so these are just going to be some more things that, look, I would encourage you, show them that you want it, right? And these are going to be some ways that you can do that. So, to your point, are you asking the right and relevant questions at the table? right? So for example, maybe there's a sign on your table. I'll use your major as an example. Maybe you are, and we don't like to say mathnasium, but let's just say the company is mathnasium. And you walk up to that mathnasium company and maybe a question that you're asking is, what is the overall hiring process? I have recently applied and submitted my application, all of the materials, and I am now just wanting to know what the next steps in that process would be. That could be the question, right? And from there, are you being attentive to listen? Because don't be like me sometimes. I may tune out and I may ask a question and they'll say it in a so try to make sure that you are listening. And like you mentioned, grabbing business cards, QR codes and different things like that to continue maintaining and establishing the connection. All right. I am going to go past this. Well, so offering value, this is where are you networking and going into spaces that are truly valuable in terms, like, is it relevant to your major? Is it relevant to your industry, right? So are you adding, right? Looking for opportunities to provide value to your connections. So for example, as you mentioned with alum, am I truly connecting with alum because I'm trying to go into a PhD program and I truly want to understand what has been or what will be my experience if I wanted to go into this PhD program. So what is the value and the value of the connection, which you want to connect with the alum. So it's very valuable because it's going to allow you to maybe make a decision that's going to put you front. Okay. Utilizing online platforms. So are you leveraging your platform? Are you keeping your LinkedIn updated? I do not recommend, this is just something I would not recommend. If your profile is not updated, I would not try to connect just yet. And the reason being is because as soon as you say here it is, they're gonna go and they're gonna probably be looking at your profiles. First impressions, yes. So be careful with that. All right. If you know that, look, right now I don't really feel as confident in my LinkedIn profile or my resume, come to us first. We can definitely look at your profile and go through that with you. But I want you to feel confident, right? Keyword is confidence going into these spaces. Okay. And let's see, we'll go past this. Okay, so following up, you all. So aside from building your network, and we'll talk about this with interviewing, but leaving a good first impression is really, really good. So for example, are you following up with individuals? So for example, are you leaving an email? Are you being sure that, like I said, if they give you their LinkedIn profile, are you actually messaging them to maybe set up another time that you could talk? So following up is very important, right? Just to say, hey, it was great meeting with you. It was great connecting with you. And I hope to maybe continue talking further about some opportunities. So following up goes a long way, but it doesn't go a long way, if that makes sense. Because I know some of y'all are probably like, well, I've done that, but they didn't respond. And that's okay, right? But at least you know that it's off your conscience, right? And it's in their inbox, right? All right, the lovely save the date. We're here. Okay. Once again, this is not going to be the QR code for the survey. The surveys are on your chair. Okay, so we are now about to hop into the job interview and the interview skills. If you're staying, feel free to stay. I talked to the people. We have the room. It's about 6. So we're good if you want to stay. All right. So we are now gonna hop into job interviewing and etiquette. You should have your handout. Okay. You should have your handout that has the preparing for an interview and the common interview questions. Um, First and foremost, you all, I will talk to you about these handouts. So if you look at the one that starts with preparing for an interview, that's going to be starting with page 27, right? Preparing for an interview, we're just kind of giving you some steps on how to get ready, right? The preparing for an interview, I have literally taken each of these elements on this document, and we're going to go through them, okay? On the back side of that, how many of you have heard of the STAR method? Right? We're going to talk about how you can utilize that.
And then the next sheet that I had given you, how many of you have some upcoming interviews? Like you have an upcoming interview, right? These are gonna be some common interview questions that hypothetically, all right, you could potentially be asked to practice these questions. I like to say that this sheet can be used as a brain dump. And what I mean by a brain dump is like, excuse me, Miss Ariana had you all do jotting down thoughts and different things. This is also what you can use to help jot down thoughts. Like let's just say you're preparing for an interview and you needed to just write down some things to remember to answer that interview question. This is gonna be a handout for that. All right, y'all ready for the journey? All right. All right, so preparing, what do you bring overall? Right? So, of course, this is going to vary based on modality. And what I mean by modality is it's going to vary based on whether or not it's in person, whether it's virtual. Right? So some of this information, like at the first part of this, we're just going to kind of breeze through because it's just kind of standard. But what do you bring? Of course, you got to have your resume, right? I heard you mention your portfolio, so that is also acceptable. Water, a portfolio is the lovely black thing that everybody say, oh my God, I need a lovely professional folder. That is what a portfolio is called. Okay, where to go? So for example, if it's in person, if you're like me, sometimes I like to maybe go and get the route ready before, like I may take that weekend before to just go drive to see where the place is so that I can be like, okay, this is where it's at, this may be how much time it's gonna take based on traffic. Because we know traffic is gonna be not on our side in Houston, okay? If it is a flight that you have to take, are you flying out in enough time to be able to get to your interview? Assess for parking, right? Do you know where you're going? So overall, do you know where you're going? Do you know what's happening? As it pertains to virtual, right? Making sure that you find a quiet location. A lot of times people will be on interviews or appointments and you're in the car. So are you in the car? Yeah, driving there, but if it's in a virtual setting, I wouldn't be on the phone for the virtual interview. Also preparing your technology is very, very important in a virtual space because we know Wi-Fi and different things like that. So please make sure you're preparing your technology. Dressing for success. I know Ariana mentioned that we do have a career closet. We do. In our office, we have a feminine and a masculine closet. So feel free to use at your pleasure. It is a 2-day rental. It only is $10. Right? So let's just say if you look on your lovely card and you want to go to the STEM fair, and you are needing a suit to rent, you can come to our office and you could rent a suit, meaning for my men, you can rent a blazer, pants. We do have a selection of shirts, but you get you a tie for $10, right? It's a $10 rental. For my ladies, we have a feminine closet, same thing, okay? So feel free to utilize and leverage the career closets to allow you to be able to dress for success. All right. So overall, how and what does that look like? Okay. As it pertains to the suits, we do encourage you to make it black or blue or gray. Okay. As it pertains to the shirts and the ties, we do want you to maybe have like a white shirt or a light colored shirt for my ladies, maybe you have on a blouse, right? Not saying that you have to walk in and be bright, because whatever you have is what you have, but just be mindful of your color choices. Okay. Pants, don't want them to be too tight or baggy. So for my men, we're gonna make sure we pull our pants up, we're gonna have a belt on. Okay. For our ladies, we're gonna make sure our pants and things are good. Shoes for my ladies, I would not recommend wearing the high stiletto heels. Okay, I would encourage you to wear some neutral flats, right? We call them kitten heels, right? I would say wear them, because at the career fairs, it's a lot of walking, standing. You're gonna have to wait in a long line. So truly, truly, truly be prepared, okay, for that. For my men, polished leather shoes. It doesn't have to be leather shoes, but just having some closed-toe shoes, right? Now. You asked me the question about the difference between the mixers and the fair, right? Dressing for success does vary at those two events. And I'm gonna tell you why. Maybe you want to go to the mixer because it's business casual. Maybe you don't want to go to the career fair because it's business professional. The difference between the two is maybe at the career fair, we're expecting you to be suited and booted. As you see, we're expecting you to be suited and booted, right? Suit, tie, everything. Not a tux, but just a regular suit. But then at the mixer, let's just say you want to show up like what you have on. You want to get the job.
Would it be professional if it was like business casual or whatever, and I showed up?
Because we get students that will come to the mixers and say, it's okay, I would say, that's a good example of maybe you don't want to go to the mixer because you're like, man, that's just too down for me. Like I gotta dress down. Whereas with the fair, I don't know, maybe you're like, man, look, put a suit on or something. I don't know, but do whatever makes you feel good. All right. But we just want to let you know that dressing for success, going back to your point about first impressions, it does play a part into that. All right. So keep these things in mind, but letting you know that we do have the career closet available. Ariana?
So remember how you want to be that first impression. So sometimes that means going the extra mile, bringing clothes, okay? There's a lot about you, right?
I would say dress like the job you want to get, or dress like the person. So, for example, in my class, the first day we go around and we say, "What is your major? What do you want to become?" And I let them know that from that day forward, that is who you are when you show up in the classroom. So, for example, the way you think, the way you talk, the way you answer a question, I need you to think like a lawyer. I'm not saying come into the classroom dressed like one every week, but I need you to think like it. So, going into these networking events and spaces, maybe you're thinking like the mathematician who has her PhD already. Maybe you dressing like her, walking like her, whatever you need to do, but dressing for success and playing and dressing like the role of the person that you're trying to become does play a part. It does. Okay. All right. In-person interviews. This is where I just want to talk to you about the different types very quickly. It could be a one-on-one interview. It could be a group. How many of you have done maybe a group or a panel interview with about 4 or 5 people in the interview? I want to talk about the technical aspect of that. So if you're like engineering, computer science, different things like that, maybe chemistry, maybe math, maybe they want you to demonstrate a technical skill. So maybe when you go into an interview um, as a mathematician, maybe they'll put a problem on a board and they want to actually see you solve that problem step by step in terms of your method. That is what we consider to be a technical interview, right? If you're going into engineering, maybe they give you a problem or something, and you actually have to solve that problem in front of them because I want to see if you can think on your feet and if you could do it. Okay. Phone interviews, these are just going to be some common tips, right? These kind of apply based on what I mentioned about virtual, but making sure that, and I do want to stress that typically with a phone interview, it typically can be a screening interview where they are just truly wanting to know maybe if you're interested in the position, maybe what your salary expectations are, just to kind of get that thorough screening, right? Talk to me about your experience, why you're interested. So just make sure that I'm not going to say dress professional, but like if you want a video call, make sure that you look at least somewhat professional. And the good thing about a phone interview is that you can actually use notes and, different things. You can have your resume and things like that. When you're on the phone, try to speak in a way that they can hear you, right? Articulate, right? If you know that there are some language barriers, right? Try to talk very slow and articulate the things that you're trying to say to them, okay? Virtual interviewing tips. This is going to be where very straightforward, right? Making sure that you silence your phone, right? These are just common things that,
hey, even making sure that with your laptop, is your laptop like folded down or is it up in front of you so where the camera can, you can see the camera and things like that. So different things, like I said, testing the technology, testing the webcam. We all know that during COVID, we had to make sure that if we got on the call, we were dressed professional from the waist up. So it still stands the same, right? Using hand gestures, like I told y'all, I use my hands, and that's okay, right? Making sure you close unnecessary browsers on your computer. So we're not gonna have like Twitch open, streaming Twitch in the middle of the interview. We're not gonna have that. We're not gonna have our shopping tabs open in the interview. Okay. Just make sure you close all of them. Okay. I'm just gonna be very honest. I've seen it all. We're not gonna have images in the background flipping off people as your background. We're not gonna do that. I've seen it all, you all. We're not gonna have these weird usernames on the call, right? Maybe her, I'm just gonna say because this is Indianapolis, but maybe it's like Indianapolis chick, right? That's not gonna be her username. So we would encourage you have your name, okay? You're not gonna have any crazy pictures, right? So just keep all of these things in mind, okay? Background noise, we know that that's common, but just keep those things in mind. Too common are going to be maybe a live interview or maybe even a recorded interview or a pre-recorded interview. So if it's a live virtual interview, a lot of times students don't understand that maybe they'll send you a Zoom link, maybe they'll send you a Teams link, right, to join in on the actual interview itself, right? Making sure, as I mentioned, that your username and things are appropriate, right? Pre-recorded. How many of you have done a pre-recorded interview? So pre-recorded means that maybe they say, hey, you have been selected. Here's a link. We're gonna ask you about 5 questions and we want you to record yourself. How many of you done that? Okay, did y'all like that?
No.
No. I do not like those. And the reason being is because they just truly can't understand who you are in that quick of a space. And you might only have, like I say, you might only have one time. You probably can't re-record. So that's the pre-recorded stuff, but I'm just gonna be honest with you. If you do get a pre-recorded, that is where I would complete it. And then if you know someone that you can maybe reach out to, then from there, maybe you reach out to them to say, hi, my name is such and such. I've just completed my interview. I just wanted to let you know, whatever. Right. That is how you can start to build a connection. Right. Any questions about this? Okay. I'm gonna go past this, you all, because this is just common. Like if your video stops working, if your audio stops working, like common things to do. We're now at the point in the hiring world where they might give you, like the hiring manager or someone might say, hi, here's my contact information. Call me if you lose connection. Here's my number, right? That's where we are. If the noise interrupts the conversation, that's fine. If we have pets and animals and things that like it's okay. Potentially mute yourself, right? Mute yourself first, and then from there, handle whatever you need to handle, and then come back to the screen. If you have someone that enters the room, or if there's just some stuff that's going on, and you're like, can I just have a second? Feel free to turn off your video, mute yourself, handle whatever is happening, and then from there, you can come back into the interview. Okay. All right, so first impressions, we are hopping into it. All right, so and as I mentioned, being mindful of, remember when I walked up to her and the handshake was weak? That is something that you want to be mindful of. I understand COVID happened. Maybe you don't want to shake hands, things like that. That's fine. But don't just leave someone's hand standing there. Because they're gonna be like, okay. All right. Okay, so firm, hard handshake. Okay. Being mindful, are you wearing your expressions on your face? So if you're nervous, are you showing that you're nervous? Are you showing that you're anxious? Right? Being mindful of slouching in the chair. So if you are in a virtual setting, are you sitting down? Like I mentioned, is your camera folded backwards, but it's not up, right?
Being mindful of head gestures, so we're not gonna do certain things, but like, we like to, I just kind of move, right? Are you having, eye contact? Right, so last week I had a presentation with the School of Pharmacy. And I did an exercise where I walked into the room, the fifth room, and I walked into the room, it was like a row. There was like 5 or 6 people. And we did this exercise where we walked into the room and I said, okay, so do I walk in the room and just walk past all 6 people? Hey, how y'all doing? Hey, how y'all doing? Or do I say, hi, how are you today? 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 Thank you for having me. That is how we should approach a panel. Okay, if it's 5 people, we're walking up and we're talking to all 5 people. We're looking at the person and we are shaking their hand, right? If it's one person, of course, it's hi, how are you today? All right. But we're not just gonna go to the interview and say, all right. Hey, y'all, what are we waiting? Like they're waiting. So we just need to be mindful of all of these things. Are we communicating by listening and speaking? So for example, are we listening to them and then speaking when necessary? Okay. So I like to say that it's okay to be happy and excited. It's okay, right? But if you get too excited, right, try to bring the energy back down. Okay. Knowing yourself is first impression. And we keep talking about who you are, what your brand is. You definitely need to be prepared to speak about yourself. We're going to talk about one of the most hardest interview questions that you could potentially get, which is tell me about yourself. That is probably the most challenging interview question you will ever have. Is tell me about yourself. And sometimes it's hard for us to talk about ourselves. So this is where I encourage you, as Ariana mentioned, understanding your brand and how you're going to show up and present yourself, right? So, what makes you unique? Reflecting on your story, right? I like to tell individuals or encourage you the night before or a couple days before your interview, study yourself. I tell people, study yourself, and I know it sounds crazy, but like the way that I do it is I print out everything and I go through it and I read about myself and I'm mentally preparing to talk about myself because maybe something's going to come up, right? We're at the point where I've been in interviews where they're grilling me about my documents. And I'm like, what? You actually looked at that. And so it looks good when you're able to talk about yourself, right? If they were to say, hey, I see that you had this experience here, can you maybe talk to me about the accomplishment where you talked about that you helped increase whatever by 10%? Am I ready? Or do I have to say, do you mind repeating the question? Because I have to get my answer together. And that's legitimate. Okay. So understanding yourself, understanding your story. So all I'm trying to say is understanding your why, right? What makes you you and why do you want to get the job, the internship, things like that, right? Understanding who you are and knowing yourself will allow you to articulate who you are a little bit better. Okay. All right. Well, we're good to go past. Yeah. All right. How many of you've researched the employer before going to any like networking events? Guys, what'd you find when you research?
So, like, their statement, there, just like at the fair or the company, like, just stuff I can find on Google to know, just ask basic questions.
Right. Correct. Researching the employer, this is where I believe it was you who asked the question, right? It was you who asked the question about the
Oh, right.
about coming up and asking, like, would it be appropriate to ask them, like, basically, would it be appropriate to ask them, like, what positions they're hiring for? So this is where that research will come into play,
Okay.
right? Because they're going to expect you to know what they're recruiting for. They're going to expect, so pretty much you're walking up because you need them. So it's almost like, are you going to walk up to them and really talk to them? And we call it in our office, we say the bells and the whistles. So are you going to walk up to the table and give them the bells and the whistles about them?
even though they probably heard it about 20,000 times, but are you gonna walk up to the table saying, hello, my name is, oh yeah, I see that your company, y'all are the top, I don't know, but spitting something about them makes them feel very good because you're showing them that you are invested, and then maybe you're interested in what they have to offer.
And it's a question for the audience.
Sure.
How many of you have researched the employer and internship all the way home? Okay, what did you do about it? Do it? What did you do?
I moved on.
All right. So the whole importance of researching the employer, like Dr. Hayes was mentioning, is so that to learn more, right? You don't want to spend time asking them those questions, but you also don't want to waste your time. I've experienced, you raised your hand, so I've experienced that. I've researched the company, I looked at reviews and I said, hold up, this is not gonna work. Because if so many people are saying these things, it must be true. And I don't want to FAFO or FOF things, I know what that means. I do not want to do that. I want to find out what people have been saying. And so you have to take this seriously. Now, obviously, no one's asking you to do a research paper on the employer, right? Like you're not having to write 5 points, 5 paragraphs, 2 pages. You're just going in to understand the gist of their values and what they're looking for. If it does not align with you, do not force yourself. So, yes, you need them, but guess what? They posted the job because they need you too. So, do not sell yourself short, okay?
Yeah, and to echo, going back to your slide where the branding slide, right? I think that speaks volumes because, like, for example, we all know what's happening right in the world. And so for me, I'm not gonna go work at a company that doesn't value me, right? So, for example, you see all of this stuff that's going on in the news and things like that. And like, let's just say, I applied for a regional manager position at Target. Well, we all know what's happening there. What should I do? Like, I mean, clearly I don't need to research the company because it's in the forefront of what's happening. So these are things that as we're moving forward to definitely keep in mind. As you're researching the employer, like, don't be nervous to be like, oh, I don't feel good about this. Like, it's okay. Like, it is truly okay. Maybe you research the employer and then you still go because maybe you want to feel the vibe. Right? Maybe you go to the barrier, you're like, let me just feel it out. Let me just see, like, if the people are, see, right? Compared to what I'm researching. So get perspective, right? Another thing, are we like United Healthcare and are we in the news? Do we have lawsuits against us? Or do we have anything with the company that is like, you're like, oh, this could be shut down in a year? Right? So keep these things in mind as you're researching. I do encourage you to study the job description. As I mentioned, these employers will post some of these jobs prior to attending the event. And this is where you can study the job description to truly understand what they're looking for. Now, to your point about the questions, let's just say you get to the fair and you have the job description, but you wanting to ask them something about a duty in that job description, that's acceptable. You could say, hi, I noticed that in the job description, you mentioned that I would be working up to 50 hours a week. Well, legally, I can only work up to 40. So can you explain to me how the additional 10 hours makes, yeah, that's a legitimate question. Because at that point, they're like, oh, you read the job description.
No.
Yeah, you know that you're going to be working overtime. So you're not going to walk up saying, what's the overtime pay? Because they're gonna probably be like, well, did you read the job description? Because it's in the job description. So it's things like that. All right. Let's see. All right. So these are just gonna be some sample questions, you all. I promise we're almost finished. Common interview questions. You have the handout that I've given you. All right. Tell me about yourself is gonna be probably the most hardest question you'll ever be asked in an interview. Right. We're gonna kind of talk about situational questions, behavioral questions, but like I said, we're just gonna kind of talk about the basic things and the basic skills that you can definitely take with you going into this career fair and recruiting season. Okay. So these are some common interview questions, all right, that on a scale of maybe 1 to 10, maybe at a 10, you will probably be asked one of these questions. Okay. So I'm here to tell you that with these questions, it's important to show and not just tell. And what do you mean, Dr. Hayes? So when you show, meaning when you are talking about yourself, are you showing the wonderful things that you've done? Like, are you showing that you're a leader? Are you showing that you can think critically in your responses and how you talk about yourself? Right? One of the things Ariana mentioned in your transferable skills, are you showing the action? Right? That stands the same with this as well. So for example, what are your short-term and long-term goals? You're not just telling them, but what are you gonna show them in terms of the action that you're gonna take to achieve those goals? Right? And that goes the same for the rest of them. Right? So tell me about yourself. How should you answer this question? These are some things that you should leave out, right? So when you are talking about yourself in that first response, these are going to be some things that you should leave out. So age, nationality, marital status, personal interests and hobbies, negative statements about people or experiences. So let's just say, for example, I interviewed at Target. I'm not gonna talk about my experience that I had at another Target location. I mean, yes, you're gonna maybe talk about conflict, but I'm not gonna like talk bad about people, that store. I'm not gonna do that, right? Keep it brief, you all, and tailored to the specifics of the company. This is where, for example, to tell us about yourself, you can use that elevator pitch handout that you all have on the back of the personal branding statement. All right. And this is where you can include your area of study, right? So you're showing your most relevant experience. So if it's a job, if it's an internship, why you apply for the job, okay, and then your top qualifications for the role. So basically, what makes you interested and marketable? I think that when tell me about yourself comes up, it's pretty much this is what makes me marketable. I think that's pretty much an overall statement that I can say. What makes me marketable? And these are the wonderful things that make me marketable. Does that make sense, you all? Okay, yeah.
So if you're introducing yourself and let's say the company you're one fashion company,
Mhm.
it'd be okay to talk about like your hobby, like fashion, if it like art, if it pertains to the job.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's a great question. So yes, if it is a company and you have a specific interest or a hobby, I think it would definitely be acceptable to tie that in and make that connection. Sometimes, sometimes saying one thing can create conversation and create that connection that you're like, wait a minute, I just said that one thing, and next thing I know, we're talking about X, Y, and Z. So yes, if you feel confident, I say do it. Okay. All right, so situational questions are going to be all of the hard questions that you're going to get, all right, in interviews. And so just to talk about these briefly, with situational questions, I want you to think about maybe when something went wrong, right? When something was difficult, when something was challenging, right? You know, when you go in an interview and you get those challenging questions, we actually call those questions situational or behavioral questions. Okay. And so maybe you played a leadership role in a situation, maybe you accomplished a task or experienced a great result. And so these are just things that you can think about. But maybe these situations can definitely come from a job, an internship, extracurricular activities, student orgs. So just because you don't have any work experience, right? You can pull from these things here. Okay, so like even if you're in a group project with peers and something happened, you could talk about something that happened there. Okay. All right. So feel free to take a picture of this as well. Um, these are going to be a pretty much like some sample behavioral and situational questions. Everything that you see that's bolded, right? So, like, tell me about a time, explain the situation, describe a scenario, share how or how would you approach. I want to get you in the habit of calling them trigger words. I'll say trigger words, right? So you know that right off bat that if you see anything or if you hear anything in an interview where they say, tell me about, explain, or describe, you know for a fact that you are ready to start and get ready to talk about a behavioral or a situational interview question. Okay. Who was familiar with the STAR method again? Okay. That is now where we're going to navigate to, because that STAR method is going to allow you to answer these difficult questions. So how can you develop these strong interview responses? One of the ways is going to be by utilizing the STAR method, right? So for example, if the question was, can you describe a time when you had to solve a problem with a team, right? The S is going to be situation, right? What was going on at the time? I like to say with the situation, you're setting the foundation. Okay. With tasks, what were your tasks? Right. With action, what actions did you take to complete the task? Right. And then the result, what was the ending? So not just the situation, the task, and the action, but overall, what was the accomplishment and what was the results? Is there any questions about this method? Do we understand this method? So if we were to take this situation, can you describe a time when you had to solve a problem with the team? If we were to take this apart, right? And I'll let you read this, right? But you have the situation and you have the task. Right? Everybody good? Right? And then you have the action and the results. Okay. So with the situation, like I said, we're setting the stage. We're talking about pretty much just the overall situation. With the task, we need to pretty much maybe talk about what the goal or what the task are going to be at hand. Okay. The action itself is pretty much like, what did you do to complete the task? Right? What did you do? And then based on what you did, what was the result? Does that make sense, you all? Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And just to let y'all know, like I said, if you're looking at the preparing for an interview, I'm sorry, but preparing for an interview, the STAR method for interviewing is on the back side of that. And you will see the STAR method is going to be there. It has the example of what it is, how to distinguish in terms of answering the question. And then it has some boxes if you want to leave some notes for yourself. Okay.
It does say something about Glassdoor. Glassdoor good.
Yeah, it is, because sometimes Glassdoor, you can use that to look at salaries, and just different things about like job descriptions and positions. If you are trying, so let's just say you are wanting to see what the overall salary for a nurse is in Texas. You use Glassdoor and it will kind of give you a median average of what that would be. Okay. So very quickly, these are going to be some interview questions that you should ask at the end. How many of you ask interview questions at the end?
Yeah.
Okay. Here they are. So I would say have about 5 or 6, right? So maybe you're asking, what qualities do you look for in the applicant joining your team? Right? Maybe you're asking them about performance expectations and, will I get a raise in 12 months based on my performance? What else do you genuinely want to know within reason? I did a mock interview with a student from my class, and she asked a really good question at the end of the interview, and I never had a student ask this question before. And she asked me at the end of the interview, thank you so much for the interview and your questions. I know you have my documents, but is there something that stands out on my application materials that maybe you can recommend, or maybe that you see? Is there something that stands out to you that maybe you want to know more about? And when she said that, I was like, oh, when she asked that, I was like, that's a great question. So these are going to be some questions continue that you can definitely feel free to tap in and ask. Okay. Maybe you're asking within 3 months, what is the biggest challenge? Right. Let's just say, for example, throughout the interview, they've answered your questions. You can definitely feel free to say, hey, I know you mentioned that the salary is going to be this, but I would like to maybe talk about some other factors that contribute to that specific salary. Right? So these are going to be also some questions. Maybe you're wanting to know what the onboarding process looks like. Right? Maybe you're wanting to know what the company culture is. Okay. So keeping all of these things in mind. And then kind of like networking and creating that network and following up, it's going to stand the same with interviewing. Feel free, you can, like, this is a template that you can definitely use if you are wanting to follow up with an employer where, just thanking them for the interview, I look forward to connecting with you further, things like that, have your support, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So this is going to be that, follow-up email that I would say, let's just say if your interview happened on a Friday, I would potentially be trying to follow up no later than that Monday, no later than Wednesday, really, just to send a follow-up email to them thanking them for the interview. Okay. We made it, y'all. We made it. We made it. All right. So once again, this is the lovely save the date. Feel free and this QR code goes to our event calendar. As we mentioned, you don't have to worry about scanning that QR code. If you have your paper surveys, feel free, you can definitely complete the front and the back. Ariana is right back here that she'll take these from you. Are there any questions about anything? I know we kind of had to breeze through that, but are there any questions about interviewing?
Surveys, please let us know too about how you feel about the event being here in the blue so we can keep it.
Yeah.
Really take this serious.
Yes, we do.
That's our leverage to tell our superiors, hey, they really wanted to be here with it.
Yeah. And so are you all planning to attend career fairs coming up within the next couple of weeks? Do you feel like the information that you received today is getting you empowered to attend? Absolutely. Okay, good, good.
Shout out to Lucas. You were here since like 11:50 this morning.
He has been.
So I just want to shout you out. Thank you for coming. He was here early, waiting on us. We weren't even done setting up, and he was here waiting for it to be done.